Hey y'all, I hope everyone's doing okay and staying healthy. For my cultural immersion project, I chose to study feminism. And obviously, feminism is a wide variety of things. It can be a social movement, a political movement, a set of ideologies, but ultimately, I think it can be considered a culture as well because it very much has its own set of norms, beliefs, and social behavior. And for many people, it's a significant part of their identity. I chose feminism because it's something that I know exists and that I claim to support. But if I'm being candid with myself, I've never really explored feminism and the history behind it. To what it means to be a feminist. So I thought this project would be a great opportunity to learn about something that really matters in our society and around the world, and something that I am very likely to encounter as a mental health practitioner. That being said, I hope that I don't offend anyone with this video, and if you think I missed the mark on something, please just, let me know. Okay, feminist culture is originally and at its core the belief that women should be equal to men in socio-economic issues and politics, and that, along with the goals and culture of feminism, have evolved over time. So, going into my first experience, the immersive virtual experience, I watched a documentary titled She's Beautiful When She's Angry. This was a great film produced in 2014, and I'd highly recommend it to anyone watching. It revolves around the second wave of feminism, particularly between 1966 and 1971. So during this time, jobs, equal pay, education, and sexism were issues that women wanted to address. So women at this time challenged the notion of traditional gender norms and wanted access to better jobs, courses on women, and access to abortion and childcare. This is also when women empowerment became a large part of the feminist culture. Women wanted to be able to express themselves and advocate for their emotional and sexual needs. So, kind of going back to our definitions of feminist culture, it's important to note that the norms of feminism, at least in the USA, have changed dramatically depending on the surrounding or the context of the time. Today, we have women in working fields and they're living very differently than the lives of women in past generations. So, it makes sense that feminism wouldn't be quite the same. Some of the issues of today are that sexism is more insidious, misogyny is very public now, and the media is constantly sexualizing and setting standards for women. So, to summarize, feminism has evolved over time. Some people say that we are currently in the fourth wave of feminism in the USA, but some still say that we are in the third. From what I read, I think it's fair to say that the third wave was between the 1990s and 2010s, and that sort of corrected the faults of the second wave by being more inclusive to other races and not just middle aged white women. And part of the culture was to also address intersectionality issues and global issues. In the fourth wave, feminism has taken on the aspect of being a social advocate for a variety of issues, mostly involving marginalized groups. And the empowerment of women is pushed through technology and media. Harassment issues are also being addressed. So basically, feminism is generational in the USA, or at least that's what it seems to be, and that makes sense because the identity of a feminist revolves around the context of the time that we're living in. Something to also note is that people seem to be threatened by feminism in this day and age. A lot of groups see them as being man haters or illogical. Groups like Meninists now exist that say men are the ones being oppressed currently. This was really interesting to me. So I went on Reddit and YouTube and I watched debates between feminists and people who oppose feminism. And, it's quite remarkable how people think. For example, these Meninists often compare their singular experiences to a lifetime and generations of systematic oppression. Another argument that I saw is that feminists should call themselves equalist if they truly advocate for equality. And to me, that's a lot like, Black Lives Matter versus All Lives Matter. And to say that feminists should be equalists subverts the essence of feminism and the purpose of the movement. Um, Anyways, my other virtual experience was an online tour of the Women's Natural History Museum, which exhibits the contributions of women to social, cultural, and economic and political issues. Some of the exhibits that I looked at were the civil rights movement and women in the Olympics. One interesting fact is that in 2012, for the first time, women athletes outnumbered athletes that were male on Team USA. Um, for my influencer experience, I chose Rupi Kaur. This is the author of Milk and Honey, and she writes poetry. She's also a big advocate for feminism. So I explored her Instagram. She touches on social issues other than feminism as well, and often highlights the beauty and hardships of females through illustrations and writings. For the legislation portion, I chose to highlight Iceland. Now, I listed one piece of legislation in my paper, but I wanted to highlight for you all that Iceland is very progressive, and they have laws like gender equality must be taught in schools. 9 months of parental leave is mandatory, and boards of government or public companies must be at least 40% women. So it's very progressive, and I hope that the USA can learn something from that. The journal article that I read highlighted feminist therapy and how we can apply it to expressive arts for adolescents. Through all this research, I would like to say that my perspective of the culture and purpose of feminism has shifted dramatically. I think that it's very relevant and very important. I don't know that I had any biases, and if I did, it was probably more due to a lack of knowledge that might hinder my ability to deal with a feminist client and their cultural values. Some counseling issues that might arise from feminism are a need for empowerment and control. And by that, I mean more of a say in their counseling experience. I think that transference could also be an issue if a feminist felt like the counselor wasn't validating their experiences. Luckily, feminist therapy exists and might work very well when approached by someone with feminist values. In feminist therapy, the counselor should be feminist, pro-feminist, or anti-sexist at the very least. Voices are marginalized are valued in feminist therapy, and egalitarian relationship exists between the counselor and the client, and social action and awareness of societal forces are explored, and so is identity overall. Ethical issues that might arise from this are centered around avoiding harm. So if the therapist doesn't take the time to do the research and explore themselves through a feminist lens, they are more likely to perform in a way that might offend or mentally wound the client. Countertransference might also be an issue if the therapist sees their client as someone who's defiant or similar to someone else that they may know. I think that the experiences I had were very important to me and my ability to work with clients in the future, because even if someone doesn't have the feminist values that I have, I can better understand the societal forces that might be keeping them down, per se. I have a much better understanding of feminism than I did before, especially after reading a lot of the personal values posted on YouTube and Reddit and the personal anecdotes as well. And lastly, I have a better understanding of feminist therapy, which was one of those therapies that I don't think I ever really grasped. So I'm hoping to use this knowledge to further advocate for change and to be an ally to those who value feminism. And hopefully I can keep learning about it so that I can fully understand and integrate those values into myself. So, yeah, thank you for watching, and feel free to give me any comments or suggestions. Thank you.